That is not working. All right, let's try this one more time. I would like to thank everybody for your patience while we're dealing with a little bit of technical difficulties over here. One more time. I would like to thank everybody for your patience while we're dealing with a little bit of technical difficulties over here. Thank everybody for your patience while we're dealing with a little bit of. All right, so without any further ado, welcome to the November episode of the National At-Home Dad Network monthly webinar series. I want to thank you all for coming to join us today. Further ado, welcome to the November episode. I'm trying to figure out webinar series. There we are. I think we have this all handled now. I do apologize again for the little bit of a snafu there. Welcome to coming to join us today. It is November and we have our monthly webinar. With us today, we have Pete Beskus. Pete actually was one of our speakers at Home DadCon in Phoenix. And he gave an amazing presentation on handling anger, which is something that as parents and we all deal with. And I felt that, it was really helpful to me. And as we're moving into the holidays, we all know that this is definitely a stressful time for a lot of people, whether it's with all the family that we have visiting or all the obligations that we have going on. And so we brought Pete in today, and he's going to go over with us a couple of strategies and ideas that we can use to help reduce our stress and anxiety so that we can actually enjoy the holidays and not necessarily be in the jam that we've been in the past. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Pete and hopefully not make any more mistakes with the tech today.
That's awesome. Thank you for having me here, Matt. Really enjoy being part of this group and being part of this crowd because we're all here. We're all dads. We're all at home. This is a different environment, I think, for a lot of us too, as we get close to the holidays, because like Matt, like you said, the expectations are so high, right? And we're holding ourselves to these really, really, really high standards. So what I wanted to put together was something that probably hits home with a lot of you guys out there. And the idea of how to tame the holidays, right? Because the holidays should be fun, right? The holidays should be a time where you can reduce stress, where you can actually take a time to breathe, be thankful, appreciative of the things that are around you. And we've almost flipped it 180 to becoming a part of the year that a lot of people dread. So I'm going to share with you guys some different ideas, different ways to approach the holidays, and really to dive down to what it is that causes that stress and anxiety that we all feel so acutely this time of the year. So next week's Thanksgiving, and this is a perfect time to dive into this. Let me just go here. Oh. Sorry, now I'm having technical difficulties. All right. Well, let's start with this quote, which I thought was hilarious. I don't know if you guys have watched National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, but the line here from Ellen is, "Well, I don't know what to say except it's Christmas and we're all in misery." And I think every single one of us has felt some sort of misery or pain at some point during this holiday season. And what I've noticed is the holidays for me used to only be 2 weeks long, right? There was the 2 weeks before Christmas, because up in Canada we celebrate Thanksgiving in October, so there's a huge gap between Thanksgiving, maybe there's a few days for Halloween, and then you have a couple of weeks of Christmas, Boxing Day for the Canadians and the Brits out there, and New Year's. But now you start to see this across every aspect. September 1st hits, and the Christmas decorations are up at Costco. Right? By September 15th, you're smelling pumpkin spice everywhere. right? you're
Sadly
bar-
true.
Sadly, right? You're barreling into Halloween, which now turns into a week-long festival, and before you know it, you're right up on the heels of Thanksgiving, and that's when the whirlwind happens, right? And I think we all feel that pressure that now the holidays aren't a 2 week, 1 week interval; they're 3 months of a crush of expectation, right? So what do we do?
Absolutely.
Yeah, how do we arm ourselves against that, right? That's what I'm going to talk about. But first, I'm going to introduce myself again. My name is Pete Beskus. I'm a certified life coach. You guys can follow me at www.petebeskus.com. YouTube. I'm going to share a lot of tips and hints about this stuff throughout the next 6 weeks as well as we're into the season. So definitely, if you like this, we're going to expand more on what in the coming weeks here. I'm going to throw some stats at you because I'm a stats guy. 70% of people polled by Gallup love Christmas and Thanksgiving days, right? So that means that the majority of us love those two holidays. We love Christmas and we love Thanksgiving. But then we contradict it by saying half of us would skip the holidays entirely. Like, why is that? Why is that happening? Why is it that we love Christmas and Thanksgiving, but half of us could take or leave the holidays? And I think that's because of the extreme stress that we feel. So 25, according to the American Psychological Association, 25% of the population feels extreme stress around the holidays. And there are a lot of different reasons for that. But these are the big ones. The big ones are lack of time, feeling stretched thin, lack of money, right? The expectation to spend, and giving great gifts. A lot of people put pressure on themselves to outdo either themselves from year to year or other parents or other family members. These all contribute. There are also some other stress factors through the holidays. One is the travel. And I know in the US, travel's a big one. You're crossing the
Mm-hmm.
country, you're dealing with weather conditions, you're dealing with delays at airports, you're dealing with all of the outside circumstances that are out of your control. Next big one, family gatherings, right? And I threw in drama because family gatherings aren't stressful if there's no drama.
Wait,
Right?
there are families that gather together without drama?
I think that there's one and they took a picture of them on a Hallmark card,
Okay, because I
right?
was going to say honestly, we lucked out this year. The only family that we're going to have in town is my mom, and she lives literally less than 2 miles from our house. So it's just going to be us and one grandma. Nobody else is coming in. So it's going to be a chill holiday for us, but that's not the norm.
That's not the norm, but be careful because you might get addicted to that not the norm style holiday, right?
Tempting, tempting.
The third one, kids at home,
Yeah.
right? Where so we got them after summer break, they're in school, they're in their routine, we get a few hours to ourselves, and now they're home again. And if you don't have nice weather, they're in the home. So now you got to entertain them, manage the house, make sure everything's going operationally, sound, and let's throw in visitors, holidays, decorations, etc. Right? Then there's obviously money and spending, right? How many of us have a budget, stick to a budget, blow a budget every single year when it comes to Christmas? I know I'm guilty of this constantly. In my head, I'm always like, I'm going to not do that this year. And then January 1st hits, and I'm like, damn it, I did it again this year.
And
Right?
and I know for the last couple of years, I know in our house we overcompensated, especially with the kids having to do remote school and the isolation of the lockdown and the pandemic. Um, I'm sure we're not the only family that tried to make up for it by going just way overboard when it came to Christmas.
Yeah, exactly, right. So we go hog wild, and that is a huge kind of, what do we call it? Like the seesaw effect, right? You overcompensate, you overstress. Now what do you do next year, right? How do you top that? The other one is loss, and I think this is something that kind of we overlook or try to push away. It's the idea of depression during the holidays for people who have lost family members or who are alone. Um, that also creates a huge stress factor during this time, right? And there's also the comparison. Um, comparison too of, what does somebody else have that you don't have? And we focus on those things that help to increase these stress factors. And then I kind of lump it all together with the holiday overload. And that was kind of what I mentioned earlier, where everywhere you look, it's in your face. Like the holidays are constantly in your face. You can't turn them off. I love Christmas music. I'm not going to lie, but I do not like it November 15th.
That makes one of us.
I like to keep, December 15th, let's crank them all up, right? And then December 26th, I want it off. I want to shut off. But, that holiday overload is such a factor these days, and we just can't escape it. So let's look at ways that we can manage what's coming at us, that we are out of control, and what are the things that are in our control. So here are some of the symptoms. So for all of you guys who are out there right now, this is a great little checklist, a reminder to check in with yourself to see if any of these symptoms are cropping up for you. One is anxiety, right? And that's something I feel acutely. The panic attacks, the anxiety, just feeling that pressure that's in your chest, right? Mm-hmm. Depression is a big one, especially if you feel like you have less than. Moodiness, right? I think we can all feel like really, really good at one moment, and then we're like, what the hell's going on around here, right? The next minute. So watching those switches and those emotional extremes. My favorite, anger. That's how many of us feel angry during the holidays? Matt?
I can say I'm doing a lot better this year.
That's good.
I'm doing a lot better this year. I won't claim that I'm perfect, but I have certainly been implementing a lot of the things that we talked about in Phoenix, and they really have made a huge difference.
Yeah, it's now in 1% incrementally better, right? So the first thing we talk about is awareness, and I think these symptoms are going to help everybody to try to understand when is this creeping in, because it does come in like a creep. The other one is the increased food, alcohol, drug use, right? Yeah. Or not just drug use or alcohol or food, anything that we're tempted to overdo. So it could be overdoing TV, it could be overdoing anything. But the reasons I brought these three up, and as I believe a lot of those New Year's resolutions come from not being in a place that you're controlling yourself during these next 6 weeks. So all of the good work, all of the stuff that you do all year to stay healthy, to stay mindful, goes out the window, and now you're playing catch up.
Right.
So something I'm working on right now is the ability to, how do you plan the next 2 months, 2 to 3 months, right? How do you set yourself up through the holidays to come shooting out of them in January ahead of schedule? And I think this is something to be mindful of as you're going in. Are you going to allow the next 6 weeks to dictate your 2023? And then again, the feeling of being overwhelmed, right? And in all honesty, unless you have a chronic, debilitating, anxiety condition or depression or moodiness, these are all things we created for ourselves. Mm-hmm. Every single one of these we create for ourselves. So, what is the problem? Who's to blame?
Everybody but me, right?
Everybody but me. Is it this guy?
Oh, he's been encroaching on my Halloween time.
Yeah, the creepy old guy with the beard who's sniffing around your kids. Could be him, right? Could be him. Is it this guy?
Nah.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah, that's Bezos.
Okay, good. Just checking.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Is it the Amazon behemoth? And just it's so easy to click, right? We hit our dopamine sensors every time we hit buy on Amazon. Or is it this picture? The family, the perfect family. Look at them. They're all smiling. Nothing's burnt. There's no mess on the floor. There aren't any dirty diapers, mixed in with the stuffing. Yeah, this is the idyllic picture, right? That we're all conditioned to emulate. And when we can't emulate this, we start to think what's wrong. So why do we get stressed during the holidays? There's only one reason we get stressed during the holidays.
All right, I'll bite.
Do you want to take a guess?
Comparing yourself?
That's part of it. Expectation.
Fair.
It's the all-encompassing be-all for why we feel distress, because there's components to it. There's societal expectations, right? What you should do during the holidays. There's your family, which includes your kids' expectations, your spouse's expectations, and then ultimately it's your own. It's what you've set as the bar that you're trying to meet or exceed every single year, at every single event, at every single moment. And I love this quote from Seneca because I'm a Stoic, believer.
Mhm.
Expectations are the greatest impediment to living. So in anticipation of tomorrow, we lose sight of today. And I think this quote is so relevant to the holidays because when I first introduced, 70% of people love Christmas and Thanksgiving because they're in the moment, they're in the day.
Mhm.
And all that expectation is evaporated. By the time game time hits, December 25th, midnight, all bets are off.
Right.
Right? The minute the first football is kicked on Thursday, all bets are off. Or on, depending on if you're betting on the games, right?
I'm not gonna lie, I forgot that they played football on Thursday.
Well,
I'm not a sports guy.
That's how I used to track American Thanksgiving, was the Thursday
Fair.
football, right?
Fair.
But here's what the expectations lead to. So they really lead to unrealistic standards. They lead to overcommitting.
Mm-hmm.
They lead to judgment, which is killer. Of all of the thought sins, judgment reigns supreme, right? People pleasing. And people pleasing is a sneaky one.
Mm-hmm.
I have a coach who says, if you're a people pleaser, you're a liar. And to expand on that, it's because if you're busy pleasing someone else at the expense of your, boundaries, you're basically not showing up as yourself. You're not showing up as the person you are. You're just acquiescing to what other people want. And what happens there, and why it's so insidious, is it builds resentment. And resentment leads to anger, which leads to the dark side. And then you end up with yellow eyes killing a bunch of, kids in the Jedi Temple. I'm just saying. That's where people.
It happens.
It was a bad night on Coruscant.
It was.
Okay?
It was.
It was a bad night. And that was all from people pleasing. And again, I have resentment there because that's the key one, right? Judgment, resentment, overcommitting, basically doing what you don't want to do. And as adults, we forgot what it's like being as kids when we're always being told to do things we don't want to do. And when we get that taste of freedom as an adult, what's the benefit? You can do whatever you want. Except during the holidays when you have to do this, and you have to go here, and you have to do this, and you have to pay for that. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
So, before I jump into the holiday guide, I'm going to tell you a few stories about how I have handled this in my life. And it kind of started when we moved. Again, in Canada, my family, my home, we were always running around, and I fell full-faced into that trap of run around, go to everyone's house, make sure you have all the presents, make sure you spend a lot. Like, everybody has to have a present. And it was exhausting. And when my wife and I moved down here to California, we are a little bit removed from where her family is. We're about an hour drive away, so we don't see them as much. So going to see them for the holidays, it fell in one of two categories. One was, I'm super excited. I haven't seen some people in a long time. I really want to connect. And the other one was, oh my God, I'm so tired. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to make the small talk. I don't want to sit at the table. Nobody who do I want to talk to? And those two thoughts would always conflict with each other. And it wasn't until I started to dive into this work when I saw an opportunity to turn this into a holiday where you get to make all the decisions. So one year, I think it was the COVID year, I believe it was the COVID year, where everything was in shutdown mode. We had the option to go to one of our family members' houses for a super spreader event or not. And we felt a lot of pressure to go to this Thanksgiving party. But there were some other, things going on in our lives. And my wife and I decided, we sat down and we decided that we were going to take the kids and we were going to go on a road trip together. And we accepted that we were going to disappoint some people, but we thought it was the best choice for us. And we made the choice to jump in the car, drive up to Sacramento, and spend a lovely 4 days or 3 days in a hotel. Just the four of us. And we spent all our time outside exploring something new, someplace new that we had not been before, in a different environment. The kids were jumping in leaves, and we were spending really quality time together. Getting takeout and sitting in parks and doing outdoor ice skating, and all of these little events that really connected the four of us in an environment where if we had gone to certain parties and gone to it would have not given us the opportunity to have that quality one-on-one time and that quality experience that we'll remember forever. And I think that's what really, doing those things and trying them out and having these circumstances dictate what kind of Thanksgiving I wanted to have, what kind of Christmas I want to have, really helped to reframe how I approach the holidays. And it comes with a little bit of thinking ahead of time. And I think that this is going to be what benefits everybody on this call. So the first thing I recommend, everyone set your expectations. Take 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, set what it is you want. It's so much easier to execute a plan, to execute an idea, when you already have an idea of where you want to go. So set that destination, put it in the Google map, right? For me, it was Orange County, Sacramento. But for you, it could be something different, right? It could be a big party. It could be a small party, but set it. You make the choice. And I think that helps, number one, in removing some confusion, right?
Right.
Number two, set a budget. But not just a money budget, because I think we all try and sometimes fail, most of the time fail the money budget, but set a time budget. And the third one, set an energy budget. For anybody who's over 40 on this call, right? Energy is at a premium when you're dealing with children, spouses, work, home, families. Energy is at a premium. And it's not just time. It's how you use that time. And where do you want to show up at your best? So when I say set a budget, set that money budget, but looking at the time that you want to dedicate. When we're going around trying to catch up with old friends or, old family I haven't seen in a long time, are you going to go and spend an entire day with one person? Or are you going to go and try to fit in 10 people in an 8-hour span? Because I've done that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And how fun is that?
It's not.
No, it's not. It's terrible, right? Because if you're anything like me, you're looking at the clock, right? So you're like, we got 40 minutes to go and bring holiday cheer here.
Catch up with Grandma. All right, time's up. Time's up. We got to go to Aunt Marilyn's house.
Yeah, and then there's the inevitable traffic, and if you're in the cold climate, the crappy weather. Right? And then there's the anything. You're leaving yourself open to frustration, anxiety, and basically ruining what should be a great holiday. So money, time, energy. The other thing I always recommend is plan with your family, right? Plan with them, talk to them, communicate with them. First and foremost, your wife. What does she want to do?
Or your partner.
Or your partner. Sorry, you're right. That's right.
Not all of our dads are
That's right.
In heteronormative relationships. Just
100%.
Whoever your partner may be.
Your spouse,
yes.
Your partner, the person that lives with you, that is going to be celebrating with you. Plan with them. You're not going to get everything you want. This is the holidays. We do share it with our significant others. Ask them what they want. Communicate with them what you want. Is going to their parents' house going to cause you stress? Okay, explain that to her. Tell her, him, tell them why. Tell them why it is. And then work with them to come up with a plan that benefits both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I also say this one. Let me see if that's there. No, I didn't put it in here, but talk to your kids.
Yeah.
Ask them what they want. Right? I kind of have a rule around here with my wife. We talk about all the time. It's let's check in with the kids. What do you want to do? Each of us gets to pick one thing we want to do. It gets them engaged. It brings them in. It makes it their holiday as well as your holiday. Because how much fun was it, Matt, when you were a kid and you were getting dragged to every old relative's house? And then all you were doing was waiting for that Christmas day, like a crack addict, for the clock to hit so you could open presents.
We didn't really do that in my family. Yeah, I did not. I didn't grow up in a family that did traditional Christmas. We tended to do a brief day family Christmas at our house, usually sometime in early December. And then when the big school holiday came, my parents and I would leave town and would go off on a trip, the three of us.
So you were spared. My experience was this: we would go around, see the family members and friends, extended friends of my parents. Then there was the obligatory midnight mass that I had to basically sleep through in order to go get my presents. So include the kids, make it fun for them, give them an opportunity to chime in, and then as it pertains to the outside family, talk to them as well. Some people's feelings might get hurt if you choose not to go to their house. So be it. Some people might get irked if you're not willing to put out 100 Christmas cards. So be it. You have to do what's best for you to preserve your time, your energy, and your mental health. And don't do the things you really don't want to do.
No.
Right? And I do have another one too, because this is something that I was thinking about as I was preparing this talk, was the idea around, what if I have to go somewhere and I really don't want to go there? Sometimes we feel obligated to support, our spouse or significant other to go to their events, and you may not get along, right, with who's there. And I think this is a great opportunity to stretch outside of our comfort zones. And I think we've all been in those situations. One technique that I like to use when I'm preparing to go into one of those situations is we emphasize whatever we think about gets magnified.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are dreading a situation, you just build up the anxiety more and more and more and more. And then you go to that event, and even though you want to support your significant other, you end up doing the exact opposite by showing up like a bear, or being grumpy or moody, or someone who doesn't want anybody wants to be around.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're creating that self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's right. You're the bad time.
You made up your mind that this was going to be a terrible time. And so when you get there, you're going to make sure it's a terrible time, because none of us want to be wrong.
Correct. And this is something that for me took a little bit of work to do and implement and practice, but it's just like everything else. Try to visualize a situation where where the event may not suck. Let's start with neutrality, right? How are all the ways that it may not suck? Maybe someone makes a really good cobbler. Maybe, if you do enjoy football or sports, maybe you can just sit on the couch and watch a good game with that fun, quirky uncle. Or maybe it's just spending time with your kids in that environment. Mm-hmm. Right? How can you and asking? This is where it kind of goes back to asking and talking. Asking your significant other, how can you best support them in this environment? Because we're all dads, we're all leaders of our family, and that's a way to lead, and that's a way to show up as an example to your spouse, to your family, to their family, to your children, and to the other people's children who see that example as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we can choose which approach we really want to take. And so those are really how I sum up how to handle the holidays. Really, it's all about thinking ahead of time, planning, and staying within your expectations and what you really want to get out of it. And then party like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy yourself.
And I'll throw another one out there, and this is something that I've always like worked hard to make sure that I maintain, and that is whenever I go into these environments, because I've been doing the stay-at-home dad gig now for going on 9 years. It'll be 9 years in March. Yeah, in March. And I have gone to way too many department parties with my wife, where I'm in a room full of people who all want to talk about what they do for a living. And then you mention you're a stay-at-home parent and nobody has any idea what to say to you. And a couple of things that I've always done is, come in with things to talk about, with things that are universally, have a hobby you can talk about. Be ready to talk about your kids. And worst case scenario, always have an exit strategy.
Is it like a safe word?
Oh, I wouldn't necessarily say a safe word. There's a few things that I've always done in the past. Having come from a culinary background and worked as a chef for so long, I can always hide in the kitchen. At some point, I can always find something to do in the kitchen. And no matter how much people might want to interact with you, no one will interrupt you if you are cleaning or doing dishes.
That's true. That is true.
Like even if you're in somebody else's house, if you walk in the kitchen and start doing dishes, no one will bother you. They are more than happy to let you do it. And it was always a good way for me to get a little break, get myself back together before I went back out into the fray, so to speak.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point. I think some of the other ones too is that, I didn't really bring up about like the holiday parties and being in those uncomfortable situations, but something that I find very useful. Everybody starts off with the "what do you do" angle, and that I think there's a little bit of maybe a anxiety around describing what it's like to be at home. But I love to ask people, "What do you do for fun?" Dig past that, or that you pretty much know what everyone's doing. And unless you truly care, because I don't think most of us care when we ask that question. It's almost like,
No.
what time is it?
Well, but it's the grown-up equivalent of what's your major. It's what you ask someone when you have no idea what to ask them about.
Yeah. And that's why just having a couple of questions in your back pocket, like, what do you do for fun? Oh, where's a great restaurant you've been to lately? What's there to do around here? Like, tell me a little bit about your neighborhood. Why did you choose to live here if it's somewhere unique, or just somewhere that you're not familiar with? But it's those probing questions out of curiosity. And I think curiosity is what can save us when we're in those awkward situations, is being more curious about the other person and trying to learn a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, so that's all I've got for you today there, Matt. Yeah. I was wishing everybody a stress-free holiday season.
Absolutely. And again, as far as, planning out these things ahead of time, setting realistic expectations, those are big ones. One thing that we've been working really hard with is to try to get away from the heavy consumer-based Christmas. My wife and I try to make sure that we get each other a little something every year. But honestly, when there's something that one of us really wants or needs throughout the year, we just kind of get it. I mean, if the money is there, we get it. And if the money's not there, it's not like the money's going to suddenly be there during the holidays. If you can't afford it the rest of the year, you probably can't afford it at Christmas when you have all the added expenses.
That's a very, very good point. I like that. If you can't afford it in July, you probably can't afford it in December.
No, and that's a big one. The other one is that, again, I come from a culinary background. Don't sweat the food, people. Don't. Honestly, everybody just wants a meal. It doesn't have to be this Norman Rockwell spread across the table with like the giant turkey and like seven different side dishes, unless that's what you want to do. I mean, there are people who get really excited about, spending 2 days ahead of time cooking. In general, I will do some sort of meat protein as the focus. This year I'm doing a turkey, but mostly that was because our grocery store had them for 29 cents a pound. And at that price, why wouldn't you buy one? I mean, we could eat on that for a few days, make some soup, make some stock. It was worth grabbing. But I mean, other than that, I'm going to make mac and cheese, probably some collard greens. We'll do some sort of oyster dressing because it makes my mom really happy and me happy because we're good Cajun folk. And it's just not Christmas or the holidays without a good oyster dressing.
Hmm.
But it doesn't need to be that elaborate.
Yeah, and it's actually funny what I'm doing this year, and it's kind of started with a little bit of a tradition, but my friend who lives in Northern California is coming to our house this summer. I mean, this holiday season with his wife, their two kids, and just like we did last year, we went up to their neck of the woods. We're
Mm-hmm.
just gonna cater it in, like we're ordering Thanksgiving from Whole Foods,
Yeah.
because for us, it's way more important to use that time and energy to spend catching up and working with each other, and and spending time with each other, and playing with the kids, and take one less stress off our plate.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we really have to look at it from that, like I mentioned before, the time and energy, because that those are at a premium.
Yeah.
More so than the money is the time and the energy you spend on things, and making sure that you're doing the things you want to be doing.
And the other one that I will say, and this is especially to the people that are out there sweating, whether or not they can fulfill that child's wish list. I have a 5-year-old that started writing his letter to Santa 6 months ago. And literally it is everything that he has seen advertised anywhere. And it just keeps going and going and going. And we use a lot of it where when my in-laws call, or my brother-in-law and his family call, and they're like, what are the kids into, we can pick up the letter and be like, apparently a Cato toys. At which point my brother-in-law was like, oh god, my boys are so into that. I'm like, oh good, then you know what they are. I don't. um More important than getting the things for your kids is whatever they get, play with them. Play with those toys with your kids. Don't just give them a toy. One of the things that we have been focusing a lot on lately is we've been trying to disconnect from screens.
Hmm.
I say as I stand in front of a screen doing a webinar for people watching it on a screen. But when it comes to family time, we've been looking into doing a lot more board games. And one of the more interesting things that we've found with board games is that we're finding more and more that we enjoy playing the collaborative board games as opposed to the competitive ones.
Oh yeah, I found that as well, actually, very much so.
Because I've got a daughter who's 8 going on 22, and my son who's 5. And any type of competitive game, it always ends with somebody getting their feelings hurt. Because at that age, the idea of being a gracious winner or a gracious loser is aspirational, and we can all try to aim our children towards that, but it's not natural for kids at that age.
No, not at all.
And we found that by playing collaborative games, it makes it where everybody has a good time. So our plans for Christmas this or for the holidays this year is Thanksgiving is one day. We'll cook some food. I will probably reach out to my wife and encourage her to invite any of the orphans at her job, which we started doing that back when she was in med school, because you had people whose families were all really far away. and Thanksgiving was there, and they didn't have anywhere to go. And we were like, hey, if you want some turkey, come by. We'll have food. You're welcome.
Hmm.
And we've had people come by in the past. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But that's going to be one day. My goal for Christmas this year is for the Christmas day itself is just to spend a day with the family, everybody playing and having a good time. Whether that means all of us break out into our own little table while we build our Lego because the whole family loves Lego, or whether that means playing a board game, or it means running around outside. But I'm really hoping that this year, my wife can get off a few days in a row that aren't on Christmas Day. And, the possibility that we can put the kids in the car and just go somewhere.
Yeah.
Whether that means just, going a little bit west and doing, heading to the mountains, because we're in North Carolina. And being in the middle of the state, it's kind of awesome because if we go a little bit, about 3 to 4 hours to the west, we're in the mountains, 3 to 4 hours to the east, we're at the beach. Which, beach in December isn't that exciting, but it's certainly less expensive. But, just being able to get out and go somewhere new.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things. I know we did that last year and the year before is, take some time to go and search around where you are. If you're going to travel somewhere you want to go. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not an obligation. There's this one little town here in California called Solvang, and it's a Danish town. And
Well,
it's
that
like,
sounds neat.
it is the Christmas galore town. And we went there last year with the kids, and again, it was one of those things. You just walked around, you spent a day with them, experiencing different things, seeing different things from your perspective, their perspective, and those for me mean a whole lot more than all the other events and everything put together.
Absolutely. And I will say, you mentioned the Christmas cards earlier. To all those people who send out the yearly Christmas card, I am in awe of you.
I don't know how they do it. I don't
Not
know how
a
they do
year
it.
goes by that I don't think to myself, I should really do this. And then the next time I blink my eyes and think about it, I'm like, well, it's January.
Yeah, and Matt, I'm
Didn't
guilty
happen.
too. I can't even send out a Christmas email.
No.
Right? Like I'm not.
No.
I'm useless with that. But I've come to terms.
Yeah.
I've embraced that part of me. I'm just not the Christmas card kind of guy.
Yeah.
But I think that again, it goes back to the people who you truly value, the people who you truly love, and they know that you love them.
Mm-hmm.
That's unnecessary.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'll make my phone calls to family and friends. And we'll just kind of spend the day doing, like you said, doing what we want to do, following our own plan and trying to do it with as little stress as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Well, I do want to thank you for coming to join us, Pete. I really, really appreciate it. Again, for anybody who is interested, I highly recommend look Pete up. He is on YouTube. He is on Facebook. You're on Instagram. I think probably not as much on Instagram.
I'm not as much on Instagram. I'm definitely on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. But if you need to get a hold of me at any time, you can just get it like any of those channels, or just go to my website. I have a new email mailing list. So every week I'm giving people little tidbits of knowledge, linking them to different videos that I'm putting out. So definitely get on the email list if you want to be part of that.
Oh yeah. I'm, again, if you're interested, Pete's a really, really great guy. Absolutely fantastic, and has certainly helped me. And I know that there's a lot of the other guys that went to the convention that talked about what a difference that anger breakout made for them.
I really appreciate it. And like I said, what I'm thankful for this year is being a part of this community, and you guys, I get a lot out of sharing and supporting and being supported. So thank you all. And I wish all of you a very happy Thanksgiving and holiday season.
Yeah. The same from both me and my family, as well as the National At-Home Dad Network. Much like last year, we are not going to be doing a webinar in December. There is enough going on for everybody. Nobody needs to try to carve out time from their schedule to watch a webinar or be on a webinar. So we will see you all in January. And in the meantime, everybody have a great holiday, and we hope to see you next year.
Thanks again.